All right, welcome back to our BoxOut Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Marco Trimboli, lead performance coach at BoxOut Performance, and with me again, bringing back is our intern, who is near his end, Lucas Ginevro here.
Happy to be back. Thank you for having me once again.
Luca, I know it's been quite some time since we had you back out here the previous time.
For sure.
So one thing we wanted to do is get you and the rest of the interns out again, just to tell us about your experience with BoxOut,
sure.
stuff like that, and like what you guys learned, what you guys enjoyed, what you guys didn't enjoy. Be as transparent as possible with us at BoxOut.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to be about. So reiterating on that is, yeah, man. Now that your time is up, sort of say.
Yeah.
What did you gain from this? Or maybe even before gain from this, why BoxOut? What made you apply to BoxOut?
Yeah, I think it was there were a lot of options that I applied to, at least, that some of which I heard back from, some of which I didn't, and some of which just were unable to offer me anything because of the COVID situation, especially in like February, March, April. I think the thing with BoxOut that really stood out to me, especially from the start, was just the idea of mental development and how it's so applicable to everybody. It's so such a part of our everyday lives, and it's not something that we work on much. We look to, a lot of us at least, don't look to necessarily improve it. And I thought just the idea was really cool and really interesting for me to kind of learn about and kind of go further with. I know the thing that a lot of, like myself as a business school student, that a lot of people are taught is like get experience in the field. And I think I did kind of in an indirect path. Like I wasn't necessarily working for, your typical business student job, like working at a bank or working in audit, But I think this experience really allowed me to really learn about something that's becoming more prevalent in society and kind of allows me to get in ahead of the curve in that. And I think that was something that interested me from the start.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Funny story. And now we can talk about being 4 months in and getting to know you more and more. Is I wasn't there when you kind of found out about BoxOut. I was supposed to be there, but I wasn't. There was Abs and Casey. That were at the.
It was the career. It was like the careers and sports fair at Schulich.
That's it, right? So I was supposed to make it out, but I didn't make it out that time. But I just remember receiving a phone call from your cousin. So it was funny how it correlated, because he called me. He's like, my cousin applied for something with BoxOut, and he's like, do you know anything about it? I'm like, no. I'm like, I never heard of it. But what a small world it is, because I've known your cousin for about 28 years, pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
And it was just funny how we found our way together here.
Yeah,
you and I, right?
For sure.
And seeing you from day one to now, I've seen the growth myself, and I'm not saying this just because you're on the podcast like that, but I'm extremely proud of how the man you've become and what direction you're going for, steering forward, and that's key, right? And I'm a person, we have our talks, whether it's about sports, music, whatever the case may be. I'm a straight shooter, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm going to tell you as is, and you've come a long way, and I'm proud of that. And yeah, man, what in a way that you told me you learned a lot about it, but more in depth. Let's go, because this is your time to shine again. And maybe we might have you out again if you have time. But I know because of school, it's going to be really, really busy for you. But more and more, what can you say, like, through your experience with BoxOut? Like, what did you learn?
I think it's definitely I think there's definitely a lot that I was able to absorb over the past 4 months, and even beyond that in the application process. I think there was a lot of learning in that too. I think the biggest thing that I would take away from this experience is just the idea of I think the biggest thing would probably be just the idea of self-improvement not being kind of a linear path. And I think I'll definitely take that. I think I'll definitely kind of apply that to so many aspects of my life moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I'll, definitely remember. And I think I kind of feel a little bit disappointed I didn't learn earlier in life, because I try to pride myself on being a lifelong learner, whether I'm in school, whether I'm participating in music, in piano, or just kind of reading or learning myself. I pride myself on being a lifelong learner. I pride myself on just getting better at anything I do. And I think I've realized that improvement is not just a linear path. As I said, it's not just practice. It's not just, as important as that is, it's not limited to that. And I think I've kind of realized that the mindset part of improvement is something that I've been a little bit weak on, but I think as I kind of improved upon that throughout this summer term, I think kind of my results of just kind of in terms of like production with BoxOut have kind of improved as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, and like I say, from day one to now, I've seen that transition myself. So talking more about, when you first, because again, this is like catch up and recap of your 4 months. Do you remember, Abs, what he asked you when you first applied? Like, do you remember like that meeting you guys had there?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing from all of you too. You guys said it was unexpected. When he's like when you guys showed up about like, oh, here's my resume. And what did Abs ask you guys that you guys weren't expecting? Do you kind of remember that?
It was a couple things. So first, I'll even go back to like the preparation of it. Yep. So first, as I was preparing for it, it was I was on our website, just kind of reading through some stuff. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, I was working with my mom on it. I knew she'd be very helpful. She's obviously done more job interviews than me. I, at that point, had actually done 0 live ones, to be honest. I did a couple others after BoxOut, but that was my first like real face-to-face job interview.
In person,
Yeah, the other ones were just like submit a resume, talk about yourself over like an automated like other person. But this was, so as I'm doing research and I was working with her on it, she was helping me with it. Mm-hmm. I came across the blogs, right? Mm-hmm. When I came across your blog, the blog you had written about Bill Belichick and the formula of coaching.
Yeah.
And that was when we actually made the connection, to be honest. It was the night before.
Was the connection. Okay.
So I don't know if you would recalled, I reached out to Rob, who would have reached out to you on what would have been the day of the interview,
okay.
right?
Okay, yes.
So, that's how we realized. I'll be honest, I didn't really recognize the name, but my mom did, and then she told me to reach out to my cousin Rob, and then I think, and so that caught my eye initially for sure, and then I think it was right from the first impression. I spent a lot of time in my preparation, preparing something to wear, and Abs showed up in a hoodie. So I'm
kind of like me now.
Exactly, and that already caught my eye, and I think that was one of the that was probably the biggest impression that I took with me from the whole experience, was just like it's, and kind of I got this sense from like the whole interview too. Like it's very informal. It's very easygoing in that sense, and I think I kind of learned that more kind of when asking him questions about like role and stuff. Mm-hmm. Or sorry, let me backtrack a sec. So the first thing that he asked me on the interview was, for me to ask him stuff, for me to lead the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into questions. When I heard about role, that caught my eye too, of how my role is something that would suit me best. That was the answer I got. And honestly, I didn't really have much of an idea of that, but I think that was definitely something that allowed me to kind of gain a little bit of perspective and allow me to kind of realize that this experience altogether was kind of whatever I could make it out to be. And yeah, no, I think that was the key takeaway from that for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing we try to do when we bring on new people, interns or others in the job force, is we want individuals to feel like yourself, to feel as comfortable as possible. Then that's why we wear the sweats and stuff like that, because if I were to show up in a suit and tie, you would feel intimidated.
A little bit, yeah.
Right? And a lot of people, so we're not looking to make people feel intimidated. We're looking people to feel confident in themselves, and also, see from their perspective how they can, make themselves work. And going more into detail with that is, that's why Ab says, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
When you're like the role of BoxOut, what do you want to do? And that's when you started coming up with new ideas, and that's where, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's where you came up with the idea of the music, the arts, right? And that's what we want to do. We wanted to get you guys prepared for, with coming up with your own ideas to create your path at BoxOut. And that's what you all did. All four of you did. You guys created your own path at BoxOut to get you guys prepared for life. Showing that you can take initiative, make the decisions, come up with new ideas. Where, I'll be honest, being in the workforce and stuff like that is, you don't get hurt that much, right? A lot of people just say, this is your role, this is what you're going to do, and that's it. But we wanted you guys to have your voice to get you guys prepared for new experiences.
Yeah.
So I know I mentioned the BoxOut Arts, and that's where you made the connection, like right away. Oh my God, BoxOut Arts.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did that come to you, like BoxOut? Like what made that quick light bulb in your head?
So it was the day of the not the career fair. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as he was kind of discussing how he discussed two things that kind of caught my eye. We're using our brains all the time. We're using the stat, I think, is 90% of performance is mental, and 90% of what we that of the information our brain receives comes from our eyes. And then he talked about how important performance is, or how important the mental aspect of performance is in sports.
Yep.
And how went through like the whole idea of the OODA loop and sense, process, decide, and act. And kind of with that, and I kind of thought, like, isn't like, I'm trying to think of exactly how the idea came to my mind, just how in performance in general, how much of it is mental. I thought, like, how isn't in music, aren't we relying on our visual skills, our cognitive skills, and our psychological skills? That was one connection I drew. Another one being, aren't we, maybe this is a little bit narrow-minded, but aren't we just performing in the same way athletes perform? There's the same way, I would even say, like, teachers in school perform. They're like, it's like an on-the-spot activity, right? It's
absolutely right. Like everything that we need to do, whatever the case may be, whatever, it's just like even having this conversation right now, like you mentioned with the OODA loop, everything that we do stems from our brains.
Yes.
Coming from our, and a lot of people, what they don't actually know, and that's what we're trying to do as much as possible through the education. That's what we've been doing for the past, I'd say, 4 or 5 years since we've been at BoxOut, is educating people, because 90% of the information that we retain are from our eyes.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when we told you guys that, you guys were all astonished by that.
Yeah.
But the OODA loop is because before anything, we got to observe what's going on. Yeah. Orient, decide, and act. Even to make a simple movement, even for me to just go like this, that's stemmed from my brain. My brain sends a message to the rest of my body.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen on its own. And that's where the education process, and I think that's where you kind of said, like, if this is so important in sports and this is so important, music is just as important, because there's a lot of coordination happening with the notes. Right. So is that like what, like the coordination that you feel like Was it correlated?
Yeah,
with
and
one
they
another?
say like when you look at the others aren't coming to me, but when you look at like athletics and the arts, and I know there's others, it's just escaping my mind right
No
now.
worries.
One thing that binds them together is their performing arts. That's something just I've kind of
So like drama, like stuff like
yeah,
that. You're saying?
and athletics are as well.
Yeah.
It's the art of performance.
Yep.
And thinking about how much he was mentioning this, how 90% of performance is mental, and how in sports we're relying on that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of came to me. It's like music's also a performing art. So what's kind of being done in that respect, and how is that something you guys have kind of looked into? That was definitely kind of a curiosity of mine, just based on kind of my experiences and my thinking based on basically what I've gone through so far.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I remember when Abs called me after, because again, I just like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't able to be there that day at the fair,
Mm-hmm.
and Abs called me and he told me about all the meetings with you guys and what you guys said, and then he mentioned about the direction you wanted to take BoxOut in arts, and honestly, like I was like, wow, like I can't believe we didn't even think about that, because BoxOut, to be honest, started just athletes. And then when I came in, I brought it to the everyday, like we're in a physio clinic now. So
Yeah,
I brought it into the wellness side. I brought it to the everyday side.
for sure.
Right? Even my own experience. And when he mentioned that to me back then, I was like, that's genius, to be quite honest. Because it's a performance. And if not, it's a really important one, because when it comes to music or drama or acting, it's a lot of memory. There's a lot of the perception with the sound and everything too.
For sure.
Coordination when it comes to instruments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why haven't we made that connection earlier? So that was a big thing I was impressed with when you told me about all your meetings, but yours in particular. I was like, yeah, let's get this going. Because remember, like we're at Box, we're not all about just the talking. We're about putting the plan to action.
For sure, absolutely.
Right? Just like this podcast, it's been up and running for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And it was me and Abs talking about this months and months and months before, but we finally put it to action. So this was your first internship experience, correct?
Yes.
So do you feel that moving forward, whether it's coming back with BoxOut or going to another job, do you feel that you kind of have new learning experience to help you in the workforce?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely think I do. And I think the biggest thing with this experience with BoxOut is that I think that was very unique, I think, more than anything, is that I learned about myself. And I think that can allow me to I think that opens up endless possibilities for me, and I think that's definitely not something that I can say I would be able to obtain in any job, in just any job that I took on. So I think that's the biggest thing that I think I'll definitely take with me. Like, I learned about myself, and I think that's something that, I'll be honest, I've indirectly kind of wanted to do for the longest time. Like, I always think, like, when I'm struggling, like, what's, as cruel as this may sound, what's wrong with me? Why am I not succeeding? Why am I not excelling? Why am I not doing better? And I think, and as you, and I think the biggest thing was from those questions I would ask myself is I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure the way to get better. I wasn't sure the way to improve. I wasn't sure the direction I should go. And ultimately, I think that's something that I know that I can take anywhere and is definitely a key learning experience for me.
And in that mention right there, in that like whole little kind of thing you went on, is the reason why we did it. Is the reason why we want and continue to do these internships. Because not only do we want to obviously evolve the business, but we want to help people like yourself and all the other interns and future interns to, develop themselves and better themselves. give them as much confidence moving forward, because if you're not prepared as much as possible moving forward, then it's going to be tough, right? Because you're always going to have this self-doubt on yourself. You're always going to have this, what am I doing wrong? How can I be better? All this kind of stuff. But now that you have the experience that you have now, it's going to come a long way for you. It's going to be so huge for you. Would you not agree?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that you said is, like, I know I'm not, this isn't going to make me immune to struggles. This isn't going to make me immune to down times and failures. I think what this will eliminate a bunch of is, you just said it in your in what you're just saying, is a lot of doubt. And I think that's going to be so big for me, because I feel like time and time again throughout my high school career, my piano career, and even first year at Schulich, a lot of what I did was doubting myself. And I think this will help me eliminate that a lot, because I'll have a lot more of an idea of myself, my self-image, my tendencies, my many common actions. And I think that'll be, and I think this was almost like self-reflection.
Yeah.
In part.
Absolutely. And I think another key thing from this too as well is, now you're more aware. You have that awareness
for
now,
sure,
right? You're more self-aware, where again, a lot of people are not. Like even myself, like I wasn't as aware as I am today because of what being a part of BoxOut, knowing what we do, knowing how the brain works, knowing how the character, all ourselves work, and all, right? And I think that's going to go a long way for yourself too, moving forward in whatever direction you go with, because now you're more self-aware. And that's key, where a lot of people are not.
Right.
But so you know about being a part of this log, how much we do, what we measure, what we train. Out of all the traits, because there's about 55 plus, right?
Yeah.
Out of all the traits that we measure, and I know we've had talks in the past, and I know there's a bit, but what is the one kind of trait that either surprised you or kind of hit home the most with you?
I would say the one for me that really caught my eye, and kind of more so in a positive way, for me, I think, was conventionality. And I think one thing was, I would have had no idea that something like this especially could be measured, among the others that were surprising as well. And I think it kind of, you're right, hit home for me, because I think that's something that I definitely kind of pride myself on. Like, I definitely try to be as meticulous as possible. I definitely try to be as straightforward as possible, and as kind of as routine based as possible. And I think that's kind of why that one kind of hit home as something that really describes me, I think.
Yeah, and just to give the listeners an idea what conventionality is someone that is the importance of following rules and godly traditions and such like that. And I can speak on this too, and I'm sure Lucas as well, because coming from Italian families, that's a big thing for Italians, right?
Yeah, for
rules,
sure.
Traditions, and stuff like that. Like
Absolutely.
Sundays is for families. Lunch, the Sunday sugos growing up, as we used to call it, right? But as we get older, and as we're again more self-aware about all this information that we learn through our trades and as a person individual, is we know there is a lot of rules out there that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? That are just like, why are they there? Like, you can even look from what we experienced these last few months, even like a little bit last year during COVID. Half of the stuff they were saying, it's just been crazy. Like, you can go into a restaurant, you got to wear a mask. Yeah. Right now we're wearing masks still, right? But you go in a restaurant, you got to wear a mask. But when you're eating, you can take off your masks. Like, to me, that rule doesn't make sense. Like, first, you shouldn't even have the indoors open.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean about that? But not only that, there are some rules that are very important out there, obviously, when it comes to driving. Right?
For sure.
And you can think about some, stop signs, red lights,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, right? But how about, in a sense, for jobs, students, teachers? Like, what kind of the rules can you make the connection with that?
I think one of the biggest ones is kind of just I would say trying to kind of follow guidelines. I think is the biggest one for me. Like, trying to make sure I as a going into second year student, like get my readings in, get the appropriate amount of studying in through kind of how I think is best, and trying to not take shortcuts with that. I know shortcuts may not seem significant. I just find that it kind of ensuring that you put in exactly the amount of necessary work or more is something that I definitely try to pride myself on, because I know that doing less is kind of setting myself up for failure.
Okay, and that's a big thing, right? And at the same time, we always have to have those guidelines, because we can't just go out there and do whatever we want. We have to have some kind of boundaries, sort of say, right? Where I get it for most part is that we got to follow these rules, we got to be thing, and that's key, right? For a lot of people, especially in the business world.
Yeah.
Especially teachers, you can't just be like, hey, I'm not doing my homework. I tried that as a kid growing up, but it didn't work. But yeah, so conventionality is a big part for a lot of people. But again, everyone is different. We know that, and you know that to be more self-aware about it yourself. But yeah, Matt, what else can you tell me about your experience at BoxOut? What else do you have? Any kind of final words for future interns? Do you have any final thoughts? Like Lucas's final thoughts, sort of say.
I would say the biggest thing is you're kind of putting me.
I'm putting on your spot, man. Last podcast for you until future. So I want you to leave the audience kind of with something to remember you by, in a sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say the biggest thing is to for any future BoxOut interns, I would say the biggest thing is make the experience your own, because that's good enough, and I think you can attest to that as well.
100%. I think honestly, man, that's a perfect way to memorize you by. You got to make it your own, and that's what you did. And again, I'm not gonna say, because I am proud of you, because you did do a lot along the way, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Go Leafs though. I know you're still a Bruins fan, and we're working on that. And even a Dolphins fan, we're working on that for the Steelers side. But again, man, all the best. Thank you again for coming out. I know it's a busy time for you now, so I appreciate it.
All right.
God bless, and thank you guys for listening again.
Absolutely, thank you.
Hopefully, you guys have been enjoying these. Hopefully, these traits are somewhat making more sense to you, and if not, there'll be a lot more podcasts for us to reiterate that. There'll be kind of one of my own, because everyone has a busy time coming ahead. But we look forward to moving forward and keep it going. So take care, and thank you for listening.
Thank you all for listening.